Hailing from the great cold state of Alaska, I am the Frozen Gamer, and tonight I want to talk to you guys about my E3 predictions. We are less than a month away now, with June 9th being the first day of press conferences, and so I want to get into some of the things that I expect to see at E3 this year, and a lot of what I'm going to be covering is going to be more in relation to Nintendo Switch, but I also intend to just kind of cover third-party stuff in general that I expect to see announced this year. So I'm going to start off, first of all, with this first part, talking about third parties. Now, I want to get into just kind of some of the general things I expect to see at E3 with third parties, specifically with both EA and Ubisoft, as well as Bethesda and Square Enix. So I guess there's 4 separate developers that I want to talk about here, but some of them will, I think, will be bringing the games to Switch, and then others maybe not. But either way, starting off with Ubisoft. Now, I do think that we are going to see Watch Dogs 3, as since Watch Dogs came out, Ubisoft has been doing an every other year transition with Watch Dogs, then Assassin's Creed, then Watch Dogs 2, and then Assassin's Creed. So I think that this year we're going to see a Watch Dogs 3. The big question is whether or not it will come to Switch this time. Now, Wii U did get the original Watch Dogs, although it was significantly later, as the PS4, PC, and Xbox One versions, and actually I guess PS3 and 360 as well, all came out in May of 2014. And the Wii U version didn't come out until November. And Watch Dogs 2 just completely skipped Nintendo altogether. And while I guess it's technically possible that we could see Watch Dogs 2 on the Switch, I think that that's highly unlikely, just because it's already been almost 2 years since that came out. And so most likely, if anything, we might see Watch Dogs 3. I think the real determining factor, above all else, is going to be what engine it's running on. Because if Watch Dogs 3 is in fact running on the Snowdrop engine, which it could be, then we have a very good chance, I think, of actually seeing it on the Switch. Because the Snowdrop engine does work. Mario & Rabbids Kingdom Battle was in Snowdrop engine. So was South Park: The Fractured But Whole. And so it's definitely scalable, and since they managed to get stuff on the Switch in that engine previously, I say there's a reasonable chance. What I will say, though, is that even if it doesn't come to Switch, it's definitely going to be a day one purchase for me, because I loved the last game especially. I enjoyed the first one a lot as well, but overall I would say it was definitely weaker. I just think that the second one was really superb. Not that it was like necessarily like a 9 or 10 game, but it was definitely an 8 for me, one that I really enjoyed and probably put about 60 hours or so into. Another thing I expect to see from Ubisoft is Beyond Good and Evil 2. Now, whether or not there's going to be a lot of details on it, that's kind of hard to say. More just because of the fact that they were obviously kind of really early in development before, they basically just showed us essentially a concept trailer of sorts. I mean, they didn't really give us real gameplay, or if it was supposed to be gameplay, it was clearly not running on current gen hardware. So I still think we'll probably see it. Right now they're still saying that it's going to be a PS4 and Xbox One game, but I would say that it's pretty much definitively going to be a next gen game for PS5 and Xbox 2 or whatever they end up doing. But I do think we'll see it. I'm not really sure about a Switch version. I know that if Ubisoft can manage it, they probably would want to put it on Switch, because they've already had some success with other things, and I know that with the way the Switch is doing, they probably would want to get it on there. So we'll see what happens, but I do think that there's a reasonable possibility that that could happen. Either way, I think there's a strong possibility we'll see it. I do think Assassin's Creed is going to be absent this year, simply because of the fact that Watch Dogs will probably be there instead. So more likely than not, if they even mention Assassin's Creed, they would just say that it's not going to be coming out this. They're not going to release one this year, and that they'll just be doing Watch Dogs, and that make it clear that they're actually going to be going back and forth between the two franchises, which I think is a smart idea. Not making either franchise an annualized thing, but actually having them every other year, so that way they have more time for polish and everything else. As far as other stuff I expect to see from Ubisoft, really there isn't a whole lot, at least not anything I can think of off the top of my head. But it is maybe possible, very slim chance, but it is maybe possible that we could end up seeing Rayman in the new Smash Brothers. I'd say that's kind of a slim possibility, and even if it is a thing, they wouldn't necessarily reveal it at the Ubisoft conference, just because I think that would be more fitting, since it's not specifically a Ubisoft title, to just show it at Nintendo. But we'll see what happens with that. I'm not really expecting them to do Rayman, but it would still be interesting if they did. Now, beyond Ubisoft, I also believe that with EA, we're probably going to get some more information on the next Battlefield game, which, as far as we, or at least the rumors have gone, it sounds like it's probably going to be set in World War II. Either way, it's not something I particularly care about, but we'll just see what happens. You'll see, obviously, lots of sports games, as per usual. I'm not really sure what else they would announce. I would like to think this is just more of a pipe dream, but I would love it if they would announce, like, bringing some of their titles to the Switch that they hadn't brought last year, or, you know, bringing some of the titles that are releasing this year to Switch as well, day and date, or even close to the same date. But this is also EA we're talking about, so I definitely wouldn't get my hopes up on that. As far as Square Enix goes, that's the one I think is probably going to be the most interesting. Now, the one thing that I definitely see as an issue with them is more just, I'm a little concerned about how their presentation is going to go, because the last time they did a presentation, it was awful. I think partially just because of the fact that they had already revealed some of their stuff in earlier press conferences, but also because it just kind of, I don't know, everything just kind of fell flat, to me at least. Because there wasn't really anything that we didn't already know about, basically, especially since, like, the Final Fantasy VII Remake, for example, which was announced that year, was announced at PlayStation first. So when they basically just showed exactly the same trailer at their conference, it really just kind of went. But I do think they will probably show off Kingdom Hearts 3. I mean, I think that, I'm pretty sure I read earlier that they're going to be showing something about that soon anyway. But they'll probably be showing some more off Kingdom Hearts 3, or at least, you know, let us know some little details here and there. I do expect that they're going to announce Kingdom Hearts 3 coming to the Switch. It's Unreal Engine 4. It is definitely scalable. It would not be smart of them to not bring it to Switch, and they know how well it will do if they do. So, I would say that it's going to happen. Assuming Kingdom Hearts 3 actually comes out this year, which I think it is finally the year that it's going to happen, it's probably not going to be day and date releasing it on the Switch, but I also know that there are plenty of people who are willing to wait, myself included. So, and realistically, in my case, I mean, I still haven't even played much of Dream Drop Distance, and I feel like I need to play that before I dive into Kingdom Hearts 3, and maybe even some of the 2.8 stuff. Because even though it's been really years since I've been heavily invested in Kingdom Hearts, I still feel like I need to get the full story in order to feel like I'm really prepared. And I don't have time to play through all of the games over again because some of them take quite a while. But I also believe that Square Enix is going to announce, going to actually show off Dragon Quest XI for the Switch. Since we already know it's coming, it's just a matter of, actually seeing it. And, we know that it's the Unreal Engine 4 version. It's based off the PS4 version. And I think that we're going to see something of it. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be... we're going to have any real release date for it, but I do believe we're going to at least see the Switch version in action a little bit. Or, whatever they have done so far with it. So, I think that's going to be really solid. I guess since I don't believe Dragon Quest XI has come out in the West yet, I'm pretty sure it's coming out later this year for PS4. I would say that it's probably... they'll definitely show off the PS4 version as well. In fact, that might be all they show off, but we'll have to wait and see on that. I also think that they're going to announce Final Fantasy 15 coming to the Switch. I'm not entirely sure whether or not we'll actually see it this year, but I do think that they're probably going to announce it, because they pretty much already kind of made it sound like last year that they were going to be bringing it to the Switch, but then they kept going back and forth on it, so it is in some ways a wait-and-see thing, and there's definitely going to be some work that they have to do with it, but I think that if they get enough help from the right people, that they can make it happen. And I think Nintendo would want to make it happen. I also think that they could very well show off a little bit more of Octopath Traveler. Whether or not that'll actually be something they show off in this conference is hard to say, but I do think that they could potentially, even though it is a Switch exclusive, which is really the only thing that I think works against the game actually being shown off. So, I guess we'll have to wait and see on that one. I also think that they're actually going to announce more ports coming to the Switch. Potentially the Final Fantasy XIII trilogy could happen, especially since that was running on last-gen hardware. The Switch is more powerful than that, so they could definitely put it on there. Even though they'll probably charge just about full price for the collection, or for each of the games. Because they will. They're not going to say anything about the Final Fantasy VII Remake, most likely, because it's recently been said that it's expected to release sometime around 2023, which is insane, because that's still 5 years away, and we heard about the game, like, 3-4 years ago now. So, yeah, I'm going to say Final Fantasy VII Remake at this point is just vaporware, and I don't think it's really in any better of a state than it was in when it was first announced, because of everything that's been happening with that. But yeah, I do think that we could potentially see some other things. I do think Square Enix could actually announce bringing both the Tomb Raider reboot and Rise of the Tomb Raider to Switch. They both games ran on last-gen hardware. I know that Rise of the Tomb Raider was primarily PS4 and Xbox One and PC, but it also ran on the 360. And even though I've heard the 360 version isn't great, the Switch is still more powerful than that, so they could make it work. It's just a matter of whether or not they're going to be motivated. And I think that they should be motivated because it will sell. But once again, some of this might just be more of a pipe dream. As far as the rest of Square Enix stuff goes, I'm not really sure if there's anything else. But I do think that, I do think we could get some really good stuff from them. And I hope we do, because in many ways, Square Enix has always been one of my favorite developers, as long as I've been gaming. Especially, because I really started with Squaresoft playing Final Fantasy VIII. That was my first Final Fantasy game, even though it was, I was 12 when I played it, but it's just been one of those things where, actually I guess I was 13. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Point is that ever since I had played that, I've been a big fan of their RPGs, and I, played a bunch of the other Final Fantasies, Chrono Trigger. I played most of Dragon Quest IX. I kind of got stuck after a while, and that one didn't keep my interest quite in the same way, just because of the lack of actual characters. Anyone who's played the game will know what I'm talking about, but yeah, it's Square has always been one of those developers that I've enjoyed a lot of their stuff, and I would love to see them kind of return to glory. And I really think that, especially if they start putting stuff on the Switch more, that they're going to see a lot of success there. Now, the last really major third-party developer I want to talk about is Bethesda. Now, obviously, we already have Skyrim on Switch, and they put Doom on there, and Wolfenstein 2 is coming late in June. So, obviously, Bethesda is showing support to the Switch, but I also think that there is there's more to be seen. I think that we're going to get a Fallout 4 announcement for the Switch. And while I'm not 100% certain if it's a game I really want to get into, especially since Skyrim I've kind of just been slowly working through over the past like 6 months, I will say that I think that it's going to be announced. I think that there's a very, very strong possibility of that. We could even see Dishonored or Dishonored 2 on the Switch, but those ones, it's another one where it's just really hard to say. And I also think that as far as their other announcements go, I think they are going to announce Starfield. I believe that's the name that has kind of gone around for a while. That's believed to be essentially Skyrim in space. And if that's the case, that would be awesome. That one, I feel like, depending on what engine they run it on, it may or may not be something they can do on Switch. If they stick to the Creation Engine, which is what they've been using since, I believe, Fallout 3. Actually, yeah, Fallout 3 and then Skyrim. So it might be just the engine they start with, Skyrim. But either way, if they stick with that engine, I do think that they can make it work on Switch. And I would hope that they would want to, especially because of the fact that it's obviously a platform people would buy it on. And I have a feeling that it probably would actually be one of the most popular platforms for the game. But either way, I do think that there's a really good chance we're going to see Starfield, and I'm excited about that because that's definitely something that sounds really interesting. As far as other third-party announcements, I do want to say a couple things that I think are going to happen on Switch. Even if it sounds crazy, I think that Red Dead Redemption is coming to Switch. I'm still holding on to that hope. I could be completely wrong, but I want it to come to Switch, and I think it's going to. And then also, I think that, well, we're definitely going to get Grand Theft Auto 5. That's going to be happening for sure. That's like all but guaranteed to happen on the Switch, especially with all the rumors we've had in the past. So there's that. Beyond that, I'm not really sure what other big third-party announcements there would be, or whether there would be any of the other ones that I personally would care about. But really, there's so much room for us to see more. You know, there's lots of stuff that I haven't even thought about, especially with like Xbox and all of that, just because I'm not really an Xbox guy. So we'll just have to wait and see. But anyway, what do you guys think we're going to see from third parties at E3, especially for Switch, but just in general? I'd love to hear your thoughts below. So go ahead and write down in the comments. Until next time, that is part 2 of my E3 predictions. This has been the Frozen Gamer, and I'll talk to you later.